we'll tee off of that Facebook point there because it continues to hit new highs. But our next guest says you can expect the FTC to slap the social media giant with a $5 billion fine for its violation of the 2012 consent decree.
Will this matter ultimately to investors and the stock price? Joining us is Stefanie Miller from Height Analytics. A very good afternoon to you. So talk us through this point in terms of, we haven't really seen any serious regulation or punishment hit Facebook yet, but you think the fines are on the way?
Yeah, I think the FTC is likely to conclude its investigation that we know it began a few months ago, probably in the fourth quarter of this year, maybe late third quarter. And I would expect a record-setting fine for the FTC. Now, whether that is viewed as record-setting or even meaningful to Facebook, $5 billion, as you said, is my prediction here. Facebook has around $45 billion cash on hand, so they should be able to cut that check to the government, no problem.
It's not just the FTC that's looking into Facebook. We got that Washington Post report last week that the SEC is now looking into its public disclosures. You got the Justice Department involved. Are you factoring those fines in as well?
Yeah, so I would add a little bit more on top of that $5 billion now for what I think a total fine that Facebook could face. I think the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is sort of rightfully looking into what Facebook owed investors from a public disclosure perspective. What's really interesting is the New York Times story that broke in March, this past March of 18, and we all saw the stock price get decimated shortly thereafter, was a similar story to one that broke a year earlier, March 2017, and even that story about Cambridge Analytica, Facebook, and its involvement in the Republican and Trump races was similar to a story that first broke in a smaller publication back in December of 2015. So Facebook knew, and some of the public knew, but Facebook wasn't making any disclosures to investors, and we think the SEC probably has a case to bring against Facebook for what happened since. Obviously, the stock has completely recovered, and that loss in market capitalization has been completely recovered. But for those investors that took a loss around that March-April time frame, they probably have a reasonable reason to be upset with Facebook executives.
Stefanie, what do you think about the likelihood that they move more meaningfully into paying for video content? There was a story last week about a reality show with Cristiano Ronaldo, the soccer player. Do you think they're going to start to compete with the likes of Netflix more meaningfully?
I think they should. I think that video content tends to be much more meaningful to users than the static, the text. It's part of why it was so smart of Facebook to acquire Instagram. Anything that continues to move them into that richer content seems like the right direction for the company to be headed.
And very quickly, how are you getting these specific numbers? Are you just basing it on historical evidence that we've seen with these type of things?
Yeah, so because this whole industry is so new, we don't have a ton of past precedent to look at, but for the FTC, we looked at what they did against LifeLock. The previous largest FTC fine was $100 million. Obviously, getting up to $5 billion is multiples of that, but because of the percentage of Facebook's annual revenue that would represent, we think we could see something with $1 billion handle.
All right, Stefanie Miller, thank you very much. And that's perhaps, Wilfred, why the stock is at all-time highs, because Facebook is a sales machine. If it's just fines and not enforcement action like a breakup, then it can handle it.
And as JJ was saying just beforehand, millennials buying a lot of it, or not selling as much as others, perhaps, in the last couple of months.